The Queen's family, all of her children, Charles, Anne, Andrew and Edward, are congregating at Balmoral together with William. Harry and his wife have cancelled their plans in London and will also join their estranged family in Scotland. I won't dress this up. Our newscasters and reporters here in the kingdom are already donned in black, anticipating further updates this evening on this significant moment following the statement from Buckingham Palace earlier today regarding Her Majesty's state of health. I must be blunt and tell you, but the general assumption is that the family are coming together at what can only be described as the Queen's deathbed. Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, was photographed doing the school run. She is remaining with the children in Windsor during their first week at school. The Archbishop of Canterbury has said, "May God's presence strengthen and comfort Her Majesty and those who are caring for her at Balmoral." Liz Truss, our new Prime Minister, who was appointed only a couple of days ago by Her Majesty, said the whole country will be deeply concerned by the news from Buckingham Palace this lunchtime. My thoughts and the thoughts of people across the United Kingdom are with Her Majesty the Queen and her family at this time. Well-wishers have been gathering in their droves at Windsor, and one of the couples there, Peter and Hazel Chum from the Isle of Wight, summed up the thoughts and feelings of the crowds. They said, "We just came for the day and saw all the journalists. She's been in our lives, all our lives. We're pensioners, and she's like our grandmother. That's all I can say, really. We all love her, don't we?" The Queen is said never to be happier than when staying at Balmoral. My fruits, I am aware as I begin this broadcast that Her Majesty is under medical supervision at the time of recording and that various family members are headed to Balmoral. A statement read, "Following further evaluation this morning, the Queen's doctors are concerned for Her Majesty's health and have recommended she remain under medical supervision. The Queen remains comfortable and at Balmoral. I won't be discussing it further in this broadcast. If I appear a little downcast, I'm afraid it is what it is for the moment." Okay, so on with the show. Touching lightly on Harkle business, it's generally accepted now and is being reported in the press that Harry more or less cut off Charles and William in many ways, even though Charles, being a loving father, has left his door open to his son as much as he can. William perhaps a little less so. But the olive branch was always willing to be passed, but it seems that Prince Harry feels that Charles and other members of the family need to demonstrate their accountability. And seems to want to follow in the footsteps of his wife, whose modus operandi was to cut off relationships that weren't working for her anymore, no matter how familial. She may have had good reason to do so. I don't feel that Prince Harry had quite the same reason, especially in these troubled times involving Her Majesty, when I don't even know if she's going to be here at the time this broadcast airs. What is that boy thinking? What is that boy thinking? To make her last years under this sort of suffrage. I digress. The publication of this memoir that the world is waiting for, one would hope, makes Prince Harry feel a bit gibberish. I don't know about that, but it certainly might make publishers feel gibberish. But Prince Philip's state of health didn't seem to throw up much concern for the revelations that Harry and Meghan put out there on the Oprah Winfrey interview, so I'm not quite sure why Her Majesty's frail condition might affect Prince Harry. I have no doubt that he loves the Queen, but he's got a very funny way of showing it. I speak of the English reserve. There is certainly not much demonstration of that English reserve and stiff upper lip in his actions. More's the pity. I have no doubt that he loves his grandmother, but what sort of love is that? What sort of twisted love? The other obstacle that Prince Harry and his publishers weren't reckoning on until recently, here in the kingdom anyway, not so much abroad, but is the fact that Boris Johnson is rumoured to have been completing his memoir at haste, even though he only officially resigned this week from his role as Prime Minister. The whispers are that a memoir is on the way for Christmas. So that is something else that the publishers weren't planning on, because that will sell like hot cakes too. But I'm sure there's room for both of those tones. It's very nice now that we're in September to start having news of other members of the royal family come trickling through, so that we don't have to continually focus on the Harkles. So we will be discussing them later in the week, but for this episode I'll refer to them as seldom as possible, because too much talk in that area makes me feel rather nauseous and feel rather sick. So we'll try and stay off of them as much as we can today, although there will be a couple of mentions. We'll be looking at other royals in the news, and also I'm going to do a little cosy tip jar corner towards the end, so I can show you various trinkets that I've picked up lately. So welcome my fruits. Her Majesty received Liz Truss. Her full name is Mary Elizabeth Truss, so she is not another Elizabeth officially. She goes rather like Rachel Ragland by her second name, Meghan, as they say, Meghan, or affectionately known as Meg. Oh, I shouldn't be mentioning her, should I? Bad habits die hard, my dears. Mary Elizabeth Truss, all trussed up for her appointment with Her Majesty, and wasn't it a delight to see Her Majesty, frail but so cosy there in the drawing room at Balmoral in that beautiful shade of green, wasn't it? With an autumnal vibe, in that wonderful skirt with the Balmoral tartan and a cosy cardigan. It was a very welcome sight and a welcome introduction to Liz Truss, and she was appointed Prime Minister and First Lord of the Treasury. Just prior to that, Her Majesty received Boris Johnson, together with his letter of resignation, which she was graciously pleased to accept. And we've touched on this before, but Boris Johnson was the great disappointment. In many ways was a damp squib, and Liz Truss has faced down the opposition already in her first Prime Minister's questions, and she performed very well. She is rather stilted, rather staid, and really rather dull when she is reading. When she comes off script, when there's a bit of banter, that is when she begins to come to life. And she did very well in her first Prime Minister's questions. So we have all our fingers crossed for her. I mean, she's never going to be Thatcher, who we desperately need right now in many ways to get this country ship-shape. But time will tell, won't it, my dears? What is nice is to have the feeling that there are grown-ups back in charge. That was the big takeaway at Prime Minister's questions here in the kingdom. Neither Starmer, the leader of our opposition, the Labour Party, or Truss are my cup of tea. But it was nice to have what felt like grown-ups back in charge, because, as you know, when it came to President Trump, for example, there are things that I admire about his tenureship, and there are things that I have a huge distaste for. And one of the things that I thought was dreadful was the sort of infantile temper tantrum mentality from various leaders around the world, but exemplified by Trump, which contributes to this dumbing down sort of sensibility that's going on. So I am aware of good, positive aspects of his presidency, but for me, it left a very bitter taste in my mouth, all this immaturity that went along with those 4 years. That was also something on a less dramatic scale about Boris Johnson, not so much immaturity as obfuscation. He wouldn't offer a clear answer to anything when it would have been very easy to do so. A weird sort of pacifist mentality, wanted to pacify, and every time he tried to do that, it only antagonised. Liz Truss answers a question, clearly not always in the most thrilling way, not always in the most charismatic, riveting way, but at least she is clear and answers a question. And I really appreciate that after these years of obfuscation and sort of bluster, because they don't generate a feeling of reassurance and respectability. Liz Truss is the 56th Prime Minister of Britain and Her Majesty's 15th Prime Minister, of course beginning with Winston Churchill. She is the 15th. Bets are on, will she be the last? Many people thought that Boris Johnson would be Her Majesty's final Prime Minister because many people expected him to go on winning, election after election after election. And it seemed extremely likely that he would be there to oversee the death of Her Majesty. But who knows with Her Majesty? She could go on to a 16th, 17th, she could end up with a 20th Prime Minister. Never put anything past her. So far I've only seen photographs of Elizabeth and Liz together. I don't know if any video was captured, but it was said that Liz Truss curtsied to the Queen. Now, Liz Truss began out from a family of Liberal Democrats. I believe her family were Lib Dems anyway, and she followed in their footsteps initially, and famously footage came to light of her calling for the abolition of the monarchy. So, could have thrown down a rather awkward encounter, but Her Majesty has seen all this before and she accepts all point of views. That's a wonderful thing about having a neutral head of state overseeing her government. But, of course, Liz Truss went on to see the light, and aside from becoming a Conservative member, switching allegiances, she has also spoken out to say that her views on monarchy have completely and utterly changed. And this shouldn't even be a talking point now because we're on number 3. But for those out there who might disparage this nation as so fusty and old-fashioned and sexist and chauvinist and backwards, this is our 3rd female Prime Minister. The first one coming in the 70s, in the 1970s. This is our 3rd. And it's our 3rd Conservative Prime Minister. Liz Truss has just formed the most, what's that word again? Diverse. It's everywhere, isn't it? She's formed the most diverse cabinet in history. All of the 4 great roles of state are not filled by white men for the first time in history. None of them. None of those great roles of state. The Prime Minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Home Secretary and the Foreign Secretary. No white males at all. We have a female Prime Minister. Kwasi Kwarteng is a long-term friend and close ally of Liz Truss's, going back a very long time. They've written books together. He's of Ghanaian descent, and as you know, the people of Ghana have quite a place in my heart because a lot of my friends are Ghanaian. And they have a lovely, sorry to generalize, but many of them have a very grounding, earthing, calm presence, I've come to find. Something about their nature. And I think he will have that effect on the Treasury. Hopefully. A nice grounding effect instead of this busy sort of calamity that Mr. Sunak ushered in during his tenureship. Glad to be rid of him. Now, as you may recall, when the leadership contest emerged, my favourite was always Kemi Badenoch. But I do accept that it might have been a little early and it's not quite her time, but mark my words, she will be Prime Minister. She might even be the next one. But one day she will. She's received a position in Liz Truss's cabinet as International Trade Secretary. Not one of the most glamorous jobs, and she'll be spending a lot of time abroad, but she needs that experience in cabinet. Suella Braverman is another one that's taken one of the top jobs as Home Secretary, parents of Indian origin. James Cleverly is another one, our new Foreign Secretary. I've always found him rather handsome, you know. So a lot of colour in the new cabinet, and yes, it is a really wonderful thing, but the really, really wonderful thing about it is that for this Conservative cabinet, it was never about tokenism. It was never about a sort of checklist, and this is what I'm really proud about in this government. What we're seeing now, and what I read in a wonderful article by Tony Sewell this week, you know, he spoke about the fact that this is a cabinet built on meritocracy. These people haven't been pushed up into these positions just because they're female, they're black, they're brown, there's some kind of diversity quota to fill. No, my dear, they all got there through sheer determination, through hard work, through passion, through applying themselves. This new cabinet, which is full of colour, is colour blind in many ways because, as Tony Sewell says, this was about meritocracy. It reads as a much more powerful statement to me when I look at that cabinet and I can see that they're not there through tokenism. They're there through hard work and because they're all, quite simply, the best people for the job, in Liz Truss's view. So I've no idea whether she's going to go on to be of benefit to the nation. She has the busiest, most daunting inbox of any Prime Minister in recent memory, that's for sure. I mean, it is a really daunting prospect, but at the moment she seems undaunted, but you know, we're only on day 2, day 3 rather, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. But she seems to have an air of authenticity, as much as any politician can do anyway, and I rather appreciate the fact that even though she's in danger of being boring at certain times, there is a certain cool, calm and collected demeanour that she possesses, which is refreshing in the current climate. Guess who's back? Back again. Big Willie's back. Tell a friend. Wasn't it lovely to see William and Co? What a lovely family they make up, providing the nation with that wonderful image of reassurance and constancy and perhaps a little sprinkling of domesticity as well. And Catherine in her polka dots, resplendent with a lovely freshly cut hairdo, and William so handsome, the kids looking rather adorable there in their uniforms. William and Catherine were at great pains to choose the right school for the Cambridge children, and it's rather nice that they all get to go to the same one. So let's wish them all a wonderful time for their years at Lambrook. It was really lovely to see the Wessex clan out and about. I've missed Edward and Sophie over the last month, and it was lovely to see them and have their presence. The Earl and Countess were in Lancashire. They were visiting Preston, the market at Preston, amongst other areas, because it is the 20th anniversary of their status as a city. Preston became a city 20 years ago, and they saw the market. Sophie was in that lovely sort of dusky rose pink affair with the little checks, really nice tailored suit with a white blouse, that lovely blonde hair of hers, and ruby slippers. And Prince Edward matched the ruby with his tie and with his pocket square. They toured Her Majesty's prison at Lancaster Castle. And Sophie tried her hand at embroidery. They're always getting stuck in. I always like to see Charles, the Duke of Rothesay, in his kilt, and this week was no exception. So cute in those woolly socks, isn't he? So cute! And that was a lovely sight in reds and greens, the wonderful scenes of Scotland. He travelled to the UNESCO World Heritage Site at New Lanark, an example of a purpose-built 18th century mill village. He was able to look around, learn about the history, and see the newly produced textiles, including a specially created Jubilee wool, and had some fun meeting various members of the public, his future subjects, or current subjects, depending on what happens today, and he enjoyed viewing some giant steam engines. The Queen extended her thoughts to the people of Canada. Hello, my Canadian fruits. We don't forget, my dear, that Her Majesty is also Queen of Canada and many other realms at the time of recording. And I know from your comments, my Canadian harvest fruits, you're coming into that beautiful Canadian fall at the moment. I know how highly favoured she is in many of your hearts. In many of your hearts. And she is just as much your queen as she is for us in the kingdom, my dear, and any other Commonwealth realm. So our thoughts go out to you. She said she sent a message to the Governor General and the people of Canada following the attack in Saskatchewan. She said, I will mourn with all Canadians at this tragic time. Okay, that's all I have to say on matters royal today, so feel free to skedaddle. But for those of you who want to hang around for a couple more minutes, let's look at some trinkets that I bought in a nice, cosy autumnal tip jar corner. Welcome to Tip Jar Corner, my fruits. I don't like yammering on with thanks and gratitude all the time, or it sounds like you know that I'm trying to emulate some sort of Academy Award winner speech. But I do think it's important from time to time just to thank you, my fruit basket of viewers. Yes, we're talking about the tip jar today, so a special thanks to the handful of you that will send me a little treat for a coffee or a trinket here and there. It helps make the channel a little bit more joyful for me because I get to go out and be a bit of a magpie at the charity shops and the vintage fair. But also, my thanks go out to just viewers, just those of you that are enjoying the broadcasts and click on to watch from time to time. I'm very thankful for it, especially also to those of you who leave me nice juicy comments, the witty ones, the catty ones, the naughty ones, and the interesting ones, and the educative ones, all kinds of things, my dear. It's very much appreciated. So, you know, it's important to say that from time to time. Thank you. But on with my finds, and I've got just a handful of sparkly things to share with you because I know you enjoy seeing them, and you enjoy seeing me wear them and dress up for you here and there. And autumn and winter, as you know, is the time when I most enjoy doing that and getting nice and cozy. So hopefully we'll be seeing more of them in coming weeks and months. I'll start with this lovely pendant because you've already seen me wear it a few times. Actually, I'm going to make it one of my signature pieces. You know, the velvet jackets are becoming a signature of mine. And, you know, a few pieces, choice pieces of jewellery will be stalwarts of the channel as well. And I got a lot of people asking about this one and saying that they really enjoyed it because it has that lovely... When I use the initials AB, it means Aurora Borealis, for those of you that don't know, which is that lovely sort of iridescent, multicoloured, multi-toned effect, and this has that on the neck. It's rather subtle, but a really nice sized stone. I love the different lights it throws, the different colours, and I think there's an elegance to it. Very simple. Where did I get this? I think, yes, I got this one from the vintage fair. It said on the label that it was from the 1950s, but I'm not sure how they knew that. This one was a little more than I usually pay for a trinket because, you know, I like a bargain, my dear. It was only £10 though. It's just usually, you know, I might spend 3 or 4, but this was just £10. It's lovely, and I'll be wearing it quite a bit because I very much enjoy it. I'll start with the most basic pieces and then move on to the rather more grander ones, shall I? Because this was a rather odd find, but I thought it might come in handy here and there. It has elements of grey and silver and pewter and some rather lustrous pearls or pearly sort of beads there, and a rather unusual design sandwiched between silver discs and also some glittering grey beads. And this rather monochrome necklace is nice, and I always find the monochrome ones come in handy because they go with so many different clothes and they often have a classic feel. And I rather like the sort of wet look that you get, a sort of splashy wet look when you have shimmering silvers and clear stones on top of a sort of jet black. And this one has a nice antique feel to the floral design. And I picked up some green beads as well. Originally I was going to wear them, possibly with this jacket. I wanted something green to put around the neck, and it was only £1, I think, these green beads. But they ended up being rather too flimsy, so sometimes I'll chuck them on a light shade like I've done there behind me, just to add a little point of interest. You'll often see a necklace hanging over the mirror frame behind me, or something that just adds a little twinkling of the light. I'm very much a fan of light at the mid-height of a room, or even the lower half of a room. I don't like overhead lights, and I prefer standing lamps. You all know my pink lamp, which I haven't shown off much lately, but it is still there in the corner. I'll get it out for Christmas. Watch it. And I love the dusky throw of a lamp rather than horrific overhead lights. I'd ban them all if I could, especially in this age of the LED. Is there anything less romantic than the LED light? That is the difference between the modern world and the old world. I'm sure there's fabulous things about both, but one is incandescent and one's LED. Depresses me, but I digress. More splendid brooches for my collection now, and isn't this one absolutely magical? A unicorn. And it is really a thing of magic beauty, with the proud horn there, almost pointing rigidly north like Prince William's moral compass, that turgid moral compass of his. Some dainty silver hooves there, and a lovely swish of the tail, and I just love the milky pastels of this piece. Pinks, beautiful, indescribable bluey lilac pearls with light minty green hues, and I just love the way that they all shine and dazzle together like a shimmering coat. It's as if it just transmogrifies into view and out of view, and I think it's absolutely stunning. This splendid brooch I've already worn once, so you will have seen it, and I'm sure it will come back soon. I was seduced by the beautiful antlers of this stag, which have flowering blossoms as part of the antlers. Isn't it absolutely romantic? Sort of thing one would don Balmoral, don't you think? Be rather lovely. And look how proud the stag is. So proud, with that sort of cocked forelock there and the golden hooves. Very proud with its green enamel coat. And I love the colours. You know, I'm a bit premature, aren't I, getting into autumn? It's only early September, but I think it's heralding in this new cooler season. And again, I love it. But the prize this time must go quite simply to this gorgeous piece. And I have some similar pieces in different colours, but this is almost like the ultimate, because it is that lovely Aurora Borealis, that AB light, a sort of laurel of leaves there with a great big gem in the middle, throwing all kinds of light, all kinds of ways, and with that lovely tinkly teardrop at the bottom in a sort of Victoriana style. It's just so gorgeous, so shimmery. The lights astonish me, and it's going to go with so many different things that I wear as a flash of light. So it's very powerful, a lovely statement piece, and I couldn't be happier with it. And I'm framing it in this segment on a brass clipboard. It's a vintage one that I found online, and I had high hopes for it because, you know, I've been using this one which was lamely gold leafed by myself, never really worked. And please don't send suggestions, I don't have the patience to do much with it. And I wanted to buy an actual gold clipboard, but having got this one through, unfortunately it didn't come with the stand that I saw it paired with when I bought it. It came with a stand because I thought I'd be able to clip things in the fruity clipboard there with the apple, because of course you're my fruits, if you don't mind me saying such a thing. Well, I don't mind if you do, dear. You are my fruits, and that's that. You're my fruit. So I wanted a fruity clipboard, and I thought this one might work well for not only for reading from, but for posting up a postcard on the side. So I'm going to find a stand for it so that I can post photographs or postcards in the clip if I feel the need to, if I feel the urge. But it's not really going to work as my reading clipboard because it's too clunky and it's actually too small, really, to keep notes. And this one's quite small enough. So I'm still on the lookout, but I will find the ideal clipboard, and hopefully it will be fruity too. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed my finds. That was quite nice speaking about that, because just for a few minutes I could take my mind off the situation with Her Majesty. I don't want her to die. I don't want her to die today or this year. I want her to be, for one thing, the oldest, the longest serving monarch of all time. And she's got 2 years to go before she reaches that goal. So she's got to hang around. And she's got to hang around to reach 100. And she's got to hang around because we need her. And I can't imagine life without her. I don't know about you. So, I don't know what today's going to bring. I hope nothing. But thank you for giving me a bit of respite for a few minutes. I hope I did for you as well. I'll catch up with you very soon. Thanks again. for the treats, and for being my fruits. I'll see you soon. Toodle pip.